Little bites of tender chicken breast, coated in a silky, savory, sweet but complex sauce, the scent of garlic and ginger, crunchy peanuts, a hint of numbing spiciness. Today, guys, we're making the one, the only Kung Pao chicken. A dish that is not only a true Sichuanese classic, but that has also taken the world by storm, with some slight variation in authenticity, perhaps. When I lived in China, this is the first dish I truly fell in love with, and I'm definitely not the only one. Because being a favorite Chinese dish of more non-Chinese people than actual Chinese people, Kung Pao chicken is nothing short of a bridge between cultures. Friends, we have made it to part 5 of my series on Sichuan food, sponsored by Ming River Baijiu, the first brand to bring Sichuan's traditional distilled spirit to people outside of China. More on that later. Now let's talk Kung Pao chicken. Kung Pao! I understand this is very fun to say, but obviously that's just the English translation, with the Chinese original name being
宫保鸡丁.
You gotta love Chinese voiceover speakers. Let's hear that again.
宫保鸡丁.
Okay, now let's deconstruct that. Many Chinese dishes have pretty surprising names when you translate them directly, and宫保雞丁might be one of those. The literal meaning would be something like Palace Guardian's chicken cubes. And I mean, we get where the chicken cubes come from, but what's the Palace Guardian? Well, that actually refers to one very specific person who carried that title, and that is Ding Baozhen, a 19th century Chinese government official who is said to be behind the creation of this dish. I mean, he wasn't like cooking it himself, at least I don't think so. It was probably more like his personal chefs made it for him, because Ding Baozhen was kind of a big deal. While Kung Pao chicken is most famous in its Sichuan version, sweet and sour with chilies and Sichuan peppercorns, there are many regional variations of this dish all over the country. I feel like I'm saying this in every second video. There are always regional variations of everything. Always. Ironically, Ding Baozhen himself is not actually from Sichuan, but from neighboring Guizhou province, where spicy chicken is definitely a thing. And also the final宫保雞丁was most likely influenced by his love for another certain chicken dish from Shandong province, where he has spent a large chunk of his life. Not gonna lie, it's a bit tricky to accurately trace the history of this dish, but what we do know is that Ding Baozhen ended up working in Sichuan's imperial government, where his Kung Pao chicken eventually becomes the dish most people think of today. Another little curiosity is that during China's Cultural Revolution period that started somewhere in the 1960s, references to old imperial China were, well, very counter-revolutionary and straight up evil. So, naming a dish after an imperial palace guardian, big no-no. So the term 宫保雞丁 gets changed to 胡辣雞丁, just spicy chicken cubes. So boring, right? But once people realized the Cultural Revolution maybe wasn't the best idea, they just changed it back. So as much as I love history, I love cooking Chinese food even more. And Kung Pao chicken is one of these dishes that I've cooked a lot. I've even made a cooking video about Kung Pao chicken before I was making cooking videos on this channel. But the last time I've actually done some research on Kung Pao chicken must have been like 10 years ago. So to whip up a super authentic version, I'm gonna do what I pretty much always do for phase 1 research, which is checking out around 10 different recipes and then seeing where these recipes overlap and where they can offer some special tricks maybe, and then combine and synthesize them into like one master recipe, which usually gets me pretty close to where I want to be. So here we go. Okay, it's actually not that difficult, a lot easier than what I remembered it to be. It's pretty much just a straightforward stir fry. So here's what I found out. You start out with chicken breast and you cut that into small dice, like 1 to 2 centimeters in size. And then you marinate that in a little bit of salt, soy sauce, liaozhou, aka 绍兴 wine,